Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and welcome back to the Archanea map recap. Today we are going to Knorda Market, Chapter 11 in 1 and 11, Chapter 9 in FE3 Book 1. So let's talk about it, let's just jump right in. Knorda Market, we have a number of cavaliers, we have a horseman, a sniper, a Manakete, some ballistas. This is Jake, and we have Linde in this village down here with mercenaries all around the village, and a lot of houses that primarily just give story stuff. It's a lot of in-universe placement. We have people that talk about the houses, the armories and shops having good items, which they're equivalent to what was at Port Warren. I can go over them in just a little bit. They talk about the slave market that's full of kids. They talk about not wanting to walk outside because it's not safe. They talk about hating war and wanting to have people just go home to their loved ones. One house does mention Parthia, Gradavis, and Mercurius, and this is where we see our first difference outside of the layout of the map, which we'll get to when we talk about FE3. In Fire Emblem 1, so they talk about Parthia the Firebow, Gradavis the Rock-Crushing Lance, or Rock-Piercing Lance, and Mercurius as the Mythical Blade. FE3 talks about it as the Mythical Blade, FE1 talks about it as the magical blade that can only be wielded by the Chosen. And Fire Emblem 11 just references all of them as being only those blessed by the gods may lay hands on them. So that's fun. Aside from that, the houses don't really have too much else, but there is a house that exists in FE1 and 11, but not in FE3, because Jake does not exist in FE3. That's Anna's house, yes, and Anna talks about Jake and saying that he won't talk to a man, send a beautiful woman to talk to him. Your in-game hint that you need to send Sita to talk with him. Interesting note, in Fire Emblem 1, there is no special dialogue as far as I'm aware, but in Fire Emblem 3, if you recruit Jake and send him all the way back to Anna's house, then there is a special dialogue where basically she just says that she wishes that Jake would stay home, but she understands that he wouldn't fight if it wasn't a good cause. So, there you have it. As far as Fire Emblem 3 is concerned, the only other change is that there is a house, I believe instead of Anna's house, there's a house that talks about Manaketes, because, surprise, surprise, since we skipped Pyrothi Dragon, here's your first Manakete that you're fighting. And Manaketes work differently in FE3, and so this house says that Manakete's breath attack will bypass defense entirely, which it does. There's only one unit in the game that has defense that works against Manaketes, and that's Tiki, so that's fun. But good information from the houses here. Now you might say, why are there two villages in FE3, but there's only one in FE1 and 11? Well, it's because in FE1 and 11, you get Linde here, and that's it. In FE3, you get Linde, but you also get George. Yes, George, who joined 2 maps previous, is joining here because Pyrothi Dragon wasn't a map again. So that's fun. That's a fun thing to talk about. As far as the aforementioned armories and vendors, like I said before, they really only have the same stuff as was in Knorda Market. You have iron swords, steel swords. Fire Emblem, there actually are some differences. Fire Emblem 1, you have Iron Sword, Steel Sword, Rapier, Steel Lance, Silver Lance, Steel Bow, Bowgun, Thunder, Blizzard, Heal, Mend, Vulnerary, Door Key. Fire Emblem 3, you have Steel Sword, Armor Slayer, not Rapier, or Silver Sword, or Iron Sword, I guess. Slim Lance, Rider's Bane, Silver Lance, Steel Bow, Fire, Thunder, Blizzard, Heal, not Mend, and Vulnerary Door Key. And then in FE11, it gives you steel sword, silver sword, rapier, steel lance, silver lance, javelin, steel axe, hand axe, steel bow, fire, thunder, blizzard, heal, mend, vulnerary, door keep. So, variety of stuff, good weapons to pick up, none of them super vital, none of them wholly unique. I think, oddly enough, the most unique thing is actually in Fire Emblem 3, where you can buy Armor Slayers and Rider's Banes. But yeah, that's the difference with the shops and the armories. Is that an arena? Or is that just the shop? No, that's an arena. Wow, the town got an upgrade in FE3, so Fire Emblem 3, as you can see, has a different layout. 1 and 11 have the same layout where you start here in the back, you have a path of mountains, the edges are just ringed by forests entirely. There is basically a one-tile entrance into the village at the north, and then you have all the houses and all the mercenaries. You then come up here, there's a fort with a one-tile entrance with a fort guarded by a ballista, which in Fire Emblem 1 were 2 range like archers, 4 move, and high defense, so slow, annoying to fight, but not necessarily all that threatening. You have a thief here who will make a dash for the village and burn it down, preventing you from getting Linde, who is the only aura user in the game. You have a horseman, you have 2 Pegasus Knights, the sniper, 3 cavaliers, and the 2 ballistas here, one of which is Jake, one of which is just another random one. In Fire Emblem 1, both of these are seize points. In Fire Emblem 11, this other ballistician is replaced by another cavalier, the horseman is replaced by another ballistician, and there's only 1 seize point despite it being a double gate. Actually, no, the horseman was just moved over here. The ballistician was moved off here and over here, and there's a cavalier in its place, because having 2 ballisticians on gates seemed weird, I guess. Still mercenaries over here, still a ballistician blocking that fence. And then FE3, yeah, ballistician. This was changed. First of all, Jake doesn't exist, but second of all, it is a single gate tile. You're just using the standard castle here. And then the other ballistician was moved down here. These are all clustered together. Now, you might recognize this map from close to the end of Fire Emblem 12 or Fire Emblem 3 Book 2, wherein you have a lot of reinforcements that come out of these forts. However, that is not the case. There are no reinforcements on this map whatsoever in any version of the map. All these forts, and they did nothing with them. So it only makes sense that they redid it when it came around in Book 2. But anyway, speaking of Fire Emblem 3, I mentioned that the map was changed. As you can see, there is a border of forests on this side of the mountains, but there's no flanking of forests on these sides. The shape is just rounded off here instead of coming down. There is a back path into the village through the mountains with some forests in between. The northern part of the village is 2 tiles wide and is a little more centralized instead of being, actually technically 3 tiles wide with this forest. Instead of being over here towards the right, it's more centralized. There are still the same number of mercenaries, I believe. Oh, there's 1 fewer. Yeah, basically the same, just 1 fewer. Is that an additional Pegasus Knight, though? Yeah, there used to be only 2, and now there are 3. So you lose a mercenary, you gain a Pegasus Knight. It kind of evens itself out, I suppose. But yeah, the village got an upgrade. Now there's an arena, there's a back door, there's a wider front gate. There's a second village here. Knorda Market's doing pretty well, I'd say. Despite the fact that it's a, slave market. Yeah, everything's fine. And then, yeah, you are pushed a little bit more forward in your deployment. As you can see here, Martha's in the back here, in the center. And then all your units kind of just cluster up here. Whereas over here, you have I think you have an extra unit deployment. No, you have an extra unit deployment in FE11. 3, 1, 2. Maybe you don't. I swear there was one map. Something was saying that there was an extra, but maybe that's just because Marth, like they were either double counting Marth or were not counting Marth. Yeah, Mystery of the Element says 1 to 15 plus 2. Where's number 15? I don't see it. Oh well, Wiki must be wrong. That's fine, that's fine. Anyway, sorry for the constant back and forth between those maps. Yeah, not really a whole lot else to talk about changes-wise between the maps. There is, I guess, one last change in that the sniper doesn't drop anything in FE1. In FE3, he drops a steel bow, and in FE11, he drops a spirit dust. So that's fun. Spirit dust did not exist in FE1, and I don't know if it existed in FE3, but it definitely exists in FE11, and the resistance stat exists in FE11, where it didn't in 1 or 3, really. So, I guess it's good to have Spirit Dust and be able to keep your mages doing good stuff. The dragon, the Manakete, is, while he's listed as the boss of the chapter, he is one of the few bosses that is not stationary and is not... Actually, is he stationary? Moves to attack any player unit in range. Moves north of the gate if no one is in range. Moves back to a starting position if no one's in range. Yeah. So the boss is not stationary and is not even on the gate. He can just move around freely. So what is then the gate guard is just a normal unit. Odd choice there, but you know, whatever. I'm not sure why they had decided they needed all of these forts. It makes a lot of sense for the map in Fire Emblem 3, Book 2, where reinforcements will spawn out of all of these forts, but it does not make sense to have all of these forts and then not use them. So that's something that, you know, maybe take a look at. It's also interesting that they changed the layout so much. I'm wondering if they changed the layout because they wanted to just have the same base map for both Book 1 and Book 2 and just reuse it. And if that's the case, then sure. But yeah, they changed the layout. Having the nice side path is really good for Book 2, but I don't think it really matters here. It's faster to just go through north anyway, because while this is a more direct path, all the extra forests blocking it. And if you're going to fly over, you could have just flown over the mountains anyway. This way you actually can lure out enemies and then get followed. But maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to lure enemies through the back door and get them killed in the mountains with Minerva or something. All in all, I think the map is fine. There's nothing that's particularly egregious about it. As we can see, we have another form of... It's actually back. It actually hasn't happened for a while. Arguably, it happens in some versions of the last map. But the 2-group map flow is back. We have Group A guarding a side objective and Group B guarding the main objective. And you move forward, you fight Group A, you keep moving, you fight Group B. But instead of Group A being off to one side and Group B on the other and you have to like split, you are moving the same direction. It's just a loop around. So it's Group A off the main path here, and then you continue Group B on the main path at the end. All in all, I think the map... Actually, I'm just going to go to the Fire Emblem 11 version. Hurts my eyes a little bit less to look at. All in all, I think the map is fine. I don't know why they decided they had to get rid of all the forests. Like I said, it's probably a Book 2 balancing thing, because Book 2, this map is crazy, but I'll get to that when we get there. The one thing that can be tricky about this map is the ballistas in FE11 specifically, Fire Emblem 11, because I guess FE3 they can be tricky, but you're not encouraged to send a flying unit directly into them like you are in FE11. And Fire Emblem 1, like I said, they're 2 range. They're not a threat. But in Fire Emblem 11, you have to send Sita out to talk to Jake, and Jake will shoot Sita down with an arrow spate if she's in range. So you have to position outside of his 10 range and then move into his 2 range. Luckily, Jake is stationary. And then you can talk to him the following turn, so long as your Pegasus Knight is not, as long as Sita is not killed. That said, in Fire Emblem 11, you can reclass Sita, and the Master Seal can be used for all classes, so you can either use that, or if you were playing on an actual DS during the time where the internet was available, you could get an Elysian Whip and promote her that way, and then you'd have the 10 move necessary to just jump straight through his range. But aside from that, you're either, maybe you're reclassing, maybe you're promoting, maybe you're just stationing outside and then moving in closer and then talking. But yeah, I like the map overall. I don't think it's bad. I think it can be a little bit annoying that it does tend to have a couple turns of movement, then you fight, then a couple more turns of movement, and then you kind of scramble through the rest of the enemies. They're largely spread out, and there's not a whole lot of cohesion with them. You don't get a lot of like big unit movement like you do in, even, I guess we'll bring it back because we talked about it, Port Warren, where you have like the block of cavalry, the block of armor knights and archers. You don't get that here. All these units kind of just move on their own. And that can definitely be a little bit disappointing, I guess, distracting. I remember playing through the map being careful, getting ready for these enemies to charge at me at any moment, and they kind of just all do their own thing, which is a little bit disappointing, not gonna lie. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the map. Those are the things I thought were interesting to point out. Again, nothing stands out as egregiously bad. Nothing stands out as like, oh, this is like the most brilliant thing. More so just interesting that they changed it so much in FE3, but again, with Book 2 and with taking out Jake and having to add in George, it makes sense. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the map? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you've enjoyed this recap series. I am still, as I've said before, scripting and editing videos on map flow and on the iron, steel, silver weapon block in Fire Emblem and the good and bad that comes from it. So stay tuned. Those videos will be coming out within the next few weeks. I've debated doing something to celebrate Fire Emblem 1's 35th anniversary, but I don't have any great ideas for what to do with that. So if you have any fun ideas, anything you might want to hear my takes on about the game, let me know. That's coming up on April 20th. So from recording, like just less than 2 weeks away. From posting and from when you watch it, could be, maybe just like 1 week away. But yeah, until next time, this is Mythral Zenith signing out. Have a good day, everyone.